What's up, guys? Lucas still with Optimum Athletes. I'm here with our executive hitting analyst, Sam Sorosiak. And first of all, Sam, how's it going?
It's going good, Lucas. How you doing?
It's good, man. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, of course.
So I wanted to bring Sam on for a couple reasons. But first of all, when OA started, we were just a throwing building, right? We were Sam, Casey, and Jeff, Ryan, Casey, and Jeff, and they were three pitchers. We had 20 clients or so, and they were all throwers. We didn't really have hitting. So we fired up hitting about a year later, and it's definitely come a long ways. Like in the beginning, I think, we had Mikey helping out, Steve Pastor, a couple guys that was just kind of like, hey, we need to kind of meet this need for hitting. And it was kind of almost like an add-on that we had, and throwing was still sort of our main draw. But now I feel like it's pretty much neck and neck. You guys have caught up. You guys have a bunch of technology. You and Brock and Dan are doing a great job over there, and Craig are doing a great job over there on the hitting side. So just kind of wanted to bring you on to dive more into what exactly OA hitting is all about, and kind of the philosophy, the technology, and we'll just kind of start with kind of like, what do you see on a daily basis that separates OA hitting from just another, going to a cage and getting some hacks in?
Right. I think when we first started, it was a lot of like what you were saying. It was just basically what you see on a normal daily basis where you go out in a typical amateur setting. Guys will come in, hit off a tee, do front toss, underhanded, and then go into machine, and then maybe we'd do a demo game or whatever. And it wasn't really focused on like specific like hitter needs. It was more based on, let's get in and get a bunch of reps in. So we wanted to take a more data-driven approach to correcting swing flaws and needs. So I think what really separates OA hitting from a lot of other places is that, it has that access to technology, right?
Yeah.
We're able to identify those swing needs and areas, and we're able to correct those and put programs into place to help those hitters get better. Because while we're trying to, develop bat speed as the main focus, our secondary focus is to try to make each hitter achieve the most efficient version of their swing. So I think we have many of the tools that we can use to, make those changes. We use a lot of the Axe Bat series, a lot of the stuff that's similar to Driveline. Axe Bat, Long Bat, Short Bat. We have Hit Tracks, we have Kvest, we have Blast Motion. So all that stuff comes together to form the OA hitting program that we see today.
Right. Yeah, there's definitely a ton of tools that are used daily. We see from the throwing side, you guys are going after it. Just kind of want to dive a little deeper into what exactly those technologies are and what they do. I know we say it a lot, and
right.
I know you know what it is, I know what it is. And when I talk to a parent, sometimes they'll say Hit Tracks, like, oh, what's that? I'm like, oh, wait, we should probably just explain just briefly what each of these technologies do, how they're useful to a hitter, and what kind of information it gives us.
Yeah, so if we want to start off with Hit Tracks was here when I first started working here back about 10 months ago. And I thought it was really cool because I'd never seen it before. I came in, it's basically an input-output thing where it tracks balls live, and it gives you live feedback on the balls you hit in the cage. So you could be hitting at any big league stadium, and you can have metrics on your exit velocity, metrics on your launch angle, how far the ball's going, and then it gives you a lot of other data too on contact point. And
right.
That stuff is very invaluable to hitters as they're trying to make adjustments to their swings, and just having that live feedback.
It's instant.
It's instant.
And it's right there on the screen for you to see
right there
all
on
those
the screen,
metrics.
And you can see everything. So that really gives you a good indication of like, oh, how am I improving? Am I setting PRs? How long in between PRs do I go between? Just coming in every day and being able to see your progress live on the screen is really valuable to those hitters.
I would just jump, I don't know all the technical stuff on the hitting side, but just from a guy who grew up as a hitter, through high school and even a little bit in college, like in a cage, you might swing and hit one and be like, I felt good, but did that get over the shortstop's head? Like you don't always know exactly where the ball is going, and you can, with the hit tracks instantly on the screen, you can say, oh, that most likely was a double to left center field, or actually, you know what, I felt good, but that was a line out because it was head high.
Right.
So maybe I need to start hitting the ball a little higher. So having that ability to where you kind of you can see the results as if you were hitting on a field, but you're hitting in a cage.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no. So as soon as you hit the ball, you get to see how hard you hit it, what launch angle you hit it at.
Yep.
If it's an out, it tells you what the result is on the field. It's adjustable to different levels too, so you can hit at anywhere from like 8U to professional level and above. And
that kind of like dictates how good the defense is.
How good the defense is, right?
So it gives you realistic outcomes.
Yeah, realistic outcomes based on how hard you're hitting the ball and where you're hitting it to. So that's hit tracks, and I think that's one of the mainstays in this hitting program. Lots of guys come to OA for the hit tracks because they're able to get that instant feedback.
And we're using that on almost every swing, unless we're hopping over to a different cage. But during your hour hitting slot, almost every swing you're taking is on the hit track.
Right, exactly. So that's hit tracks. And so moving on to blast motion, it's basically a sensor that you put on the end of your bat. And whatever swing you take, it's measuring everything that goes up to that point, up to the contact point. So it's measuring bat speed, it's measuring rotational acceleration, it's measuring your hand speed, it's measuring how much you stay on plane, what percentage of your swing are you on plane, measures your attack angle. It has a lot of different metrics that it takes into account when it's analyzing your swing. And that's valuable because we actually do most of our assessments based on those metrics, because it just gives us a better idea of how guys are swinging the bat and how forceful they're swinging the bat. And so a lot of blast metrics are very, very helpful in kind of dissecting how well are we doing at developing this guy's bat speed? Because similar to pitchers, you guys develop velo, we're trying to develop bat speed as the number one thing.
You got to be able to measure it.
Right, you got to be able to measure it.
Yep.
So blast motion is really how we measure that metric. So that's very helpful too. And then the final thing that we use mostly is Kvest, and that occurs mostly in our assessments. And Kvest gives you a lot of posture data. So, are you over-rotating, under-rotating? What's the separation between your torso and pelvis at different points throughout the swing? How are you sequencing your swing? Meaning, at what sequence are your different body parts reaching their peak accelerations?
That's very important.
Right. So, to me, starting with your pelvis and ending with your bat is probably the most important part. And then the stuff in the middle is more so it's best to have a 1, 2, 3, 4, meaning your pelvis goes first, your torso goes second, and then your lead arm, and then the bat.
That's something that we see on the throwing side a lot, where sometimes it doesn't really matter how much or how fast you're rotating, which is very important. But if your sequence is off, if your timing if you're doing it too early or too late, it's not going to yield results.
Right. So basically, we want to look to see what guys' average sequences are, and we do that in our assessments. And then it also gives you rotational speeds, how fast guys are rotating, and then that compares that to professional averages. So we can prescribe different med ball drills based on what guys' sequences are and how we're able to implement that as a warm-up, and then implement that to try to increase rotational acceleration in different guys as well. So we use the technology in a lot of different ways, and we like to try to create drills that help us utilize that technology more, because we use it a lot in our assessments, but we also want to incorporate it into our training as well. I
think that's something that you just said about creating drills is awesome, because I know there's a lot of coaches I played for, just coaches in general, where they get to a point where they think they know what they're doing, or they have something that works and they kind of stick with it for 10 or 15 years. And here at OA, on both sides, we want to constantly be exploring new opportunities, exploring what's the best new method. And just the other day I walked by and you were testing out some drill on yourself in the cage before we implement it to an actual trainee, which is awesome. So going off the technology that you were just mentioning, I know that you have been recently creating these report card type things. for these guys, are you mostly using those technologies that we just mentioned to create those reports, and what exactly are those reports?
Yeah, so starting last July, we started taking data in assessment format. So we'd give guys 20 to 30 swings off the pitching machine, and we hook them up to all this technology, and then we basically take all that data, throw it into one large database, and then from there we kind of created those like report cards that you see. We've been doing that for the last 8 months or so, and it wasn't until this last assessment cycle where we actually started giving out that data to players, because we actually created a survey where we asked guys, how much data do you want us to use when we coach you? And guys were actually really, really receptive to having that data and when we coach them and evaluate them. So we found that they wanted more information on themselves and not less. So they wanted more video and they wanted more data.
Yeah.
So like, how do we get that to them? Well, we've been collecting all this data for 8 months. Why don't we just, every time we do an assessment, why don't we give that to them in a presentable format? And then if they have any questions on it, they can ask us and we can address those needs. Because basically our hitting philosophy here is we take you through an assessment, and then we identify those areas where you can improve as a hitter to give you that efficient swing that we're looking for, while also building that bat speed. But being able to hand them that report gives them something to look at, something to bring home and say, okay, I need to get better at that. We give them ranges that, someone their size and their level of play should be swinging at. We give them target levels for each of that. So it helps them kind of see, okay, I need to work on that. And then we program them with specific drills to help them achieve those goals.
Right.
So, the hitting program has really come a long way. We're much more data focused now. We're much more individualized with our programs and workouts. We've gone through a lot of, evolution and
definitely
starting from working on tee to eliminating tee, not all together but mostly, and then going into warm-ups with med ball and PVC, doing a lot of that, and going from front toss underhand to overhand to better simulate pitches, and working different kinds of competitions off the machine. So we really have thrown a lot of different kind of things at hitters because we really want to challenge them to get better.
I mean, we're trying to keep these podcasts short, but we have a lot of technology that you guys use that we haven't mentioned. We mentioned the main three, but as you briefly mentioned, axe bats, hitting plows, a pitching machine that can throw breakers, heaters. There's a ton of stuff that you guys are using to, again, achieve the end goal. I think, you kind of boil it down to where it's like, hey, we're starting at this point, and I want you to get here. And when I was playing, it was like a coach would tell you something, hey, pronate or swing or whatever, and you do it like, oh, I think I did it. But now being able to have the data and say, hey, you were at a 67 bat speed, and we trained hard at it for 4 weeks, and we assessed again, and all of a sudden we're at 71. Like we got better. And so being able to say, hey, we need to go from point A to point B, and here's the drills how to get there, and here's how we're going to measure it along the way. It's it just makes the process kind of click, I feel like, to trainees a lot more. Like, oh, I can see this data. I can see it in front of me. This isn't just me blindly trusting in you that this is what I need. So to kind of wrap up, again, obviously I was mainly a pitcher, and I have more info on the pitching side. But I know that there's kind of like this, this guys butting heads on the old school versus new school and launch angle and all these buzzwords. But I remember reading this book from Ted Williams, who might be the best hitter of all time.
Great hitter,
and I don't know, he was alive, 40 years ago was he playing? How long ago was it?
Oh, gosh, long time ago.
I had to check my history, but definitely in the quote-unquote old school era. And there's a video on YouTube and his book where he's talking about how he's like, a lot of guys say they want a level swing, which is all right. Some people say to swing down on the ball. But I always thought it was slightly up was better because the pitch is coming slightly down. So I want to swing slightly up to match that plane. And it made sense for him, last guy to hit 400. But now having tools like blast motion to be able to say, hey, my attack angle is negative. We don't want that. And being able to show guys, hey, we're going to do it an attack angle focus. Or we're going to do... so I guess in essence from the outside, I see the OA philosophy simplified as like, hey, we're going to identify your shortcomings. We're going to have a plan to get here. We're going to use drills based on your shortcomings, use these tools to measure it along the way, and then encourage intent, encourage tough drills that might not always have success, but being able to use these tools to externally accomplish these goals. Is that correct?
And we want our guys to, be challenged. We want them to, take the drills seriously to try to get to where they need to be. We want to make sure that they know what their area of needs are, so that when they go into the drills, they know, okay, I got to work on this in particular. But then we also give them the tools to be able to monitor that as they go through it.
Yep.
You were talking about Ted Williams and what he was talking about swinging up on the ball. Well, we have a metric now that measures that, attack angle. So for guys that have like low attack angles, we'll do it like a special drill where we like flip the ball over the L screen, and they have to actually focus on an upward attack angle to flush that baseball. So we can have a blast sensor on the end of their bat to try to measure that, and they can take a swing, guess what their attack angle was on that swing, and then look back and actually see what it actually was.
And that starts to make the connection between feel versus real.
Right.
And once they start guessing correctly, then they're able to make those in-game adjustments without having the blast motion data, with an umpire and an actual guy on the mound. But yeah, the last thing I just want to kind of clear up, I feel like a lot of people, old school baseball heads, will hear launch angle and they'll kind of just throw it to the side.
Yeah.
But correct me if I'm wrong again, but when you take it's sort of an individual basis, right? You say, okay, this is your average exit velo. Here's the level you're playing on. Here's your strength. Like if it's a kid that's 12 years old, we're not going to want him hitting pop-ups. But if it's a guy that has an average exit velo of 100, it's like, okay, now we can really have a higher launch angle that we're shooting for. So having the range to basically allow these guys to have the most success in the field. If their average exit velo is 80, maybe their average launch angle that they want is 10. To be able to hit line drives, whatever the shortstop's head. I'm not sure if that's exactly the right metric on that, but something along those lines.
Yeah, I think as you go up in levels, the ability to field a ground ball and throw guys out increases significantly.
That's also true.
That's why, as you move up in age group, you want guys to hit the ball in the air more, because that's going to be the way that you get hits and you get extra base hits, and that's how you score runs.
I saw a quote it was some big league manager, I think, that said, I would rather a guy swing and miss 0-0 than to hit a weak ground ball to shortstop.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you take that approach where it's like, oh, I got to slow down or whatever, and I guess wrong. Yeah. And that's why I think guys are sticking with their approach. Like, oh, I'd rather swing through a breaking ball 0-0 and have 2 more chances to hit it, a line drive, than roll over and be out anyway.
Yeah, it's all about optimizing outcomes. So if you take a weak swing on the first pitch and you ground out, you don't really do much. If you take take a hard swing, you have a chance to put some power into that ball. So
that's something that was mentioned earlier in this podcast, was keeping the end goal the end goal. At the end of the day, we just want to have the most success on the field.
Right. And
these are the tools we're doing to try to make that happen.
Yep.
Sam, thanks for coming on. The OA hitting program's come a long ways. And that's, I think, is very evident now in live ABs. I remember when live ABs first started a year or two ago, it was pretty dominant on the pitchers, just dominating hitters. But now it's it's a pretty good battle. There's some line drives hit, there's some strikeouts, but some home runs almost every week.
It's more unpredictable now.
It's more unpredictable. It's fun. It's fun. So, thanks for the work you do, and thanks for coming on. And if you guys haven't looked into it, come on, check out OA. We have a lot to offer on the hitting side, and come get your swing dialed.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Lucas.
Of course, dude.